I'm Dave Ingebrigtsen, and along with Leroy Hyatt, we'd like to welcome you once again to Fly Tying, the Angler's Art. And as usual, we've got 3 varied flies for you. We think will be helpful for you wherever you live in the country. We're going to do 2 dries and a streamer. We're going to do the Jassid dry fly, the Irresistible dry fly, and the black-nosed Dace streamer. Now the Jassid is really a beetle imitation that, as far as I know, it was first invented by Vince Marinero and Charlie Fox and those guys down on the La Torte quite a number of years ago, back in the probably in the 60s, I believe, mid to late 60s, and it was to imitate the Japanese beetle and some of the other beetles, and it's still a good beetle pattern. What are you going to use to tie it?
Well, I have a size 18 hook in the vise, and thank goodness we don't have a whole lot of material to put on. They do tie these all the way down to a 24.
And starting at about 16
Starting
or so,
at about 16. All right, the only thing we'll use is a black hackle and jungle cock. I'll have the dry fly thread. Like I said, I had a size 18 in the vise. The barb's all pinched on it. I'll dress the hook, as always, about over the bend of the hook. Is really, I mean, over the point. That's about as far as I want to go. We'll take 1 hackle feather from that neck hackle. I'm going to tie it in by the butt section.
And we should mention here that it's probably a good idea. You're going to clip this off top and bottom to form legs out the side. It's not a bad idea to use 1 size hackle oversized. So in other words, on this 18, you're probably using about a size 16.
Yes, yes.
It gives you just a little longer leg sticking out.
Now what I'm going to do is just start wrapping over that thread base I just put down. I'm going to keep the wraps as close together as I can. And I'm just going to palm her straight up the body. Usually I get about to this point and break the hackle.
And of course, sometimes if you've got smaller hackles, you maybe even have to tie and use 2.
Tie in 2, sure.
It's a very simple.
Oh, extremely simple.
On one of the shows, we tied what I call my beetle. And the reason I started tying my beetle is because I didn't want to use jungle cock anymore for this.
Sure.
And that's how I came up with that other very similar pattern to this.
Okay, now what I'm going to do is just stick my scissors straight in and trim them down flat. I'm going to roll the hook around in the vise, come in at the bottom and do the same thing.
Rotary vise is nice to let you do things like that, but of course you can do it without a rotary vise.
You can do it without, but this sure does make it easier. Then we'll take one of these jungle cock nails.
Now, as we've said before, in occasions where we have used jungle cock on the show, this is legal jungle cock, as most of you know. For a long time, it was illegal to import jungle cock from India and the other places where it naturally grew because of the endangerment of the species, but now they are domestically raising it, but it takes a number of years to raise a jungle cock, and they're quite difficult to raise.
And it's not a hardy bird at all.
It's not a hardy bird, so the fact is if you're going to be getting jungle cock, whether you buy it a few feathers at a time or the whole cape, it's going to be expensive. And if you don't want to go to that expense or you don't have them available, there are other feathers you can substitute. The beauty of the jungle cock, though, is you get this nice light spot. It makes it easy to spot the fly when it's on the water.
And when we get it turned or tied on, we'll turn the vise and show you. Now I'm just laying it flat on top and take a couple of loose wraps. Now I'm going to grab a hold of the stem and pull. That's going to move the feather to the length that I want it.
And it's going to lay it down flat.
And it's going to lay it down flat.
You know, another feather that you can use is what we call the church window from the back of the pheasant. It's got that church window type pattern, and if you take that and use some of your rubber-based cement or head cement and lacquer the feather, pull it all together and let it dry.
It'll shrink it down narrower,
it'll
too.
Make it narrower, and then you can clip out a section and use for this purpose. That makes a very good substitute. It doesn't look identical, but it really doesn't matter.
No, not for this. It'll work like a dream. And that's the Jassid. I'm going to put just a drop of head cement on while I got it right here before I roll that around.
And we've said before that sometimes you'll get jungle cock eyes or nails that are split, and if you use that rubber-based cement or head cement, put a drop on the top and the bottom of the feather before you tie it in and stroke it all together.
That's right.
Let it dry. It'll be as good as new.
Roll it all in. There's the Jassid. I'll turn it around to the camera. Now you can see how that jungle cock lays directly on top. Makes a nice little windowed effect there. You can see the legs sticking out either side.
No, it's a good pattern in spring creeks, in quiet water where the fish are selectively feeding on beetles. And as you said, you can tie it anywhere from size 16 or even 14s on down to as small as you can tie.
That's right. That's the Jassid. The whole body material is tied out of black hackle, palmered, clip top and bottom. The wing is a jungle cock feather, or substitute as you wish.
Next we're going to tie a fly that's got two versions, an eastern and a western version, and that's the Irresistible, which is a very old pattern. It's tied on the materials that make it a good whitewater, rough water fly because it floats so well. And as we get into it, we'll discuss the differences between the eastern and the western version, but why don't you tell us what you're going to use to tie the western version, Leroy?
Okay, some people call this a royal irresistible because of the white calf tail that I'll put in for the wing, but whether you call it that or just an irresistible, you're right, it is an extremely good rough water fly. I'll use again 2 hackle colors mixed, a brown and a grizzly. For the tail, I will use moose tail. Now I think the original
moose
pattern,
body hair.
Moose body hair for the tail. I think the original pattern for the tail was brown and grizzly hackle fibers mixed. Like I said, I will use the white calf tail for the wing, and I'm going to use the deer body hair for the body.
That's what I was going to say. The difference between the original eastern type version was that I think the original called for brown and grizzly hackle fibers for the tail.
For the tail?
And grizzly hackle point wings.
Oh.
Now when we move west, we want a little more floatability in the really rough water out here, so we've gone to the moose tail for support and to the white calf tail.
And see, I've seen that pattern listed like that as an Adams Irresistible.
Oh, you have?
So I don't know, whatever.
I've never heard that, but I think that was the original Irresistible pattern, yeah.
What I'm going to do is take just a little bit of the white calf tail. I'm going to even the tips on them. Get rid of all that under fur. Put it in and just give it a couple of quick whacks. I want to take it out so that the tips are pointing toward the eye of the hook for when I stand, because then when I stand it up, it's much easier to do so. Lay it in, 2 or 3 good hard wraps. Don't get too close because you want to get some hackle up in front of that. Now I'm not going to...
Again, if you think about roughly a third of the way back from the eye,
pretty close.
Third the length of the shank, you're going to be pretty safe.
It's easy to keep wrapping this because you're tying it down so nicely and get up too close is the problem.
Oh, it happens to me if I'm not consciously aware of it.
And I'll put a little bit of that rubber-based cement on and then come to the rear. Now here I'll tie on a few fibers of this moose body. And you can hear, I've also used elk mane. Anything dark and stiff like that, I just like what it does for the fly. It makes it float so much better. Again, we want this about the length of the shank of the hook. So I'll lay it up and measure it.
You're going to butt it up against the wing butts?
I'm going to butt it up against the wing.
And again, since you're going to be spinning deer hair, it's nice to have a fairly uniform surface.
Yes. And I'm going to put a little bit more cement on those butts.
You know, now, a lot of people feel that you can't spin deer hair unless you're spinning over a bare hook shank, and obviously that's not true, and you're going to show us in just a minute here that it's not.
That's kind of an old version. I have now seen it where a lot of the people are starting to lay down a thread base, because what happens if you don't have a thread base, it's easier to spin the hair, but then you can spin the body hair right on it.
But in this case, you're not only wrapping over a thread base, you're wrapping over the tail and the wing butts as well.
That's correct.
So this is an extreme case.
Now I'm going to take just a small clump of this deer hair, and this is a fairly fine deer hair. People always ask me, is it mule deer or whitetail? I don't know. I can't tell you.
The answer is yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Now, when they ask you that, say, of course, yes.
Okay, I'll remember that. Probably, I think you were the last one to ask me that.
I wouldn't ask you that.
Okay, we'll put a small clump on, and we'll spin it. I'm going to go backwards just a little bit there.
And again, I commented on that the last time you spun the body, that's really a helpful trick. Most people wind it forward and leave it, but to go back towards the rear and then come forward again, it really helps secure that body.
A lot of it, too, will depend on the thread you use. If you use a real flat thread, you may not be able to go backwards through that. It may capture the hair.
A common problem with all deer hair bodies is making so they don't spin or turn on the hook after the body's completed.
Yes.
And between going back and forth and then using that little rubber-based cement on there, you get quite a firm body. Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to put a small whip finish here.
Or you could do several half hitches. The purpose here is just to get the thing out of the vise.
Get it out of the vise. That's what I'm looking for now. Now what I'm going to do is, again, like with all of these flies, I'm going to open up that belly. Just reach in there and trim. Now this fly is tied small to the rear and large to the front. So just
definite taper, and that's true regardless of what size you tie. Sometimes they tie this in very small sizes.
Yes.
I've seen 18 irresistibles and probably even smaller. I'm glad I don't have to tie them myself that size.
Yeah, they can be a little cumbersome at times doing that. Get all that out.
No, we might say something about the scissors you're using. It helps if you do, especially if you do hair work, to have a scissors where at least one blade is serrated.
You need that serrated edge.
If both of your blades are smooth, the deer hair tends to slide, and it won't clip nearly as easily. So
that's true.
I think it's true when you get any fly tying scissors, you want one blade serrated, but certainly for doing the hair work.
Now just keep trimming away. And like I've said many times, the problem with deer hair is you don't know when to quit trimming.
Looks like it's shaping up very nicely. And I have known some people that try to put the wing in after the body, and that just does not work well.
It doesn't work for me. I've seen people do that, but it definitely does not work for me.
And of course, then they have to put the butts going forward, and much better off to do it the way you did, to put the small amount of wing material in first with the points going forward. Then you get to this point, now's the time to stand
Now
up.
stand those wings up and wrap in front of them, which stands them up. Then I'll divide them. Figure 8 once or twice. And I like to go around.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, because I was just going to say that's what I like to do too.
Yeah, I go around that wing post just to make it a little bit more durable. It will stand upright more so.
And then a drop maybe of head cement on there will even help.
Yes. I use the rubber base there instead of the head cement.
We keep talking about this rubber base, and I know some of you have heard us say it over and over, but some of you may not have. When we talk about rubber-based cement, we're talking about the rubber shoe material, the repair material, there's different brands of it.
Glues.
That you use to repair tennis shoes, for example, with.
Glue your felt soles on the bottom of your waders.
Oh, I've never tried that.
Sure.
But then you thin it or cut it with either toluene or a toluene-based thinner or a lacquer thinner, and get it to a suitable consistency. And that's what we're talking about when we say rubber-based cement.
I don't like it real thick. I like to have it to where it will drip at least off the bodkin. Now I'll tie on the brown and the grizzly hackle. I put the stems between that wing, tie them down in front. And it doesn't matter which one goes forward first. And with this heavy hackle, this fly and the hollow deer hair, this fly will float very well. Get that tied off. I'll trim it when I come back with the other. And now here comes the grizzly, which gives it a really different coloration up front.
Very nice. Well, it's pretty much like the Adams hackle.
Very, very much. Yeah,
I mean, it's the same thing.
Identical. Yeah. Get rid of those two. Put a whip finish on it.
We're running a little long, so let's just say we would then put the head cement on and not actually do it. But that's A beautiful example of the irresistible.
Turn it around, you can see what it looks like in the camera that way.
And one more time, very quickly, what you used was?
The recipe is moose body hair for the tail, clipped deer hair, white calf tail wing, brown and grizzly hackle mix.
Our last fly today is going to be a universally good streamer pattern to imitate a small minnow. You'll see by the coloration in it that it certainly represents a small minnow. Most people think of it as a trout fly, but it's also, I've had very good luck with it catching smallmouth bass.
I'll bet you would.
Because anything that feeds on minnow is going to like the black-nosed dace. What are you going to use?
Well, we'll have a white bucktail, which will be on the back side of this one. I'll just cheat and use that. Also the brown on this side. We'll use a black bucktail. We'll use red yarn for the tail. We'll use a flat gold tinsel for the body, and we'll have a rib of oval silver tinsel.
Are you going to use gold on the body?
I'm sorry, silver on the body. Okay. Is that what I said, gold?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's all right. I'm so used to correcting you, I don't even think about it.
Okay. Well, and somebody's got to keep me in line. All right, I'm going to take this silver tinsel now and lay it in here, even though it is not going in for a while. But this will give a much smoother body for that gold or that silver flat tinsel to come forward with. Now I'll take a small clump of this yarn for the tail, and I'm going to use it up a little ways on there too. And I want that tail fairly short.
Yep.
Now I'll take the flat silver.
Notice what Leroy has done here. He's going to wrap that tail material down the length of the shake of the hook to give a smooth underbody, but he did not wrap it down and then come back and tie in the tinsel because that would build up so much more bulk with the thread. If you're going to tie the tinsel down, you can tie the red yarn down at the same time, just to save time and effort, but also to keep things slim.
Now what I've done is I'm going to take a wrap behind that oval tinsel rib, come forward, if I can get this out of the way, with the silver flat. Now if you have trouble here with the red tail or the black thread showing through, double wrap this silver. Start the silver at the front of the fly.
Oh, you're going to have an opportunity to do that too, I see.
I'm going to start all over.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea.
Okay.
You know, I don't mind at all when I see these things happen because they happen to all of us.
Happens to every tire.
Happens to all of us, and don't panic. Just do what you have to do to remedy the situation.
Right.
If you have to tie in a new piece or pick it up again and straighten it out, sometimes there'll be wrinkles in the tinsel. If you're using metallic tinsel, you'll have to straighten it between your thumb and your finger, but those things happen.
No. That's what makes fly tying interesting.
And maddening, too, I might add.
And maddening, too, yes.
Now, is this the mylar tinsel you're using?
This is the mylar tinsel,
metallic? Yeah.
right. I'll fold this back over and capture it again. Now here comes the oval tinsel. And you don't need this real close together. Just space it out as best you can. It does give a real good variation to that silver body.
Well, it gives a little sparkle to it to represent, you know, a light coming off a minnow. And again, for durability, whenever I use a metallic rib over a metallic body or a tinsel rib over a tinsel body, I like to coat it with head cement and then hang it up to dry and do a bunch of them to that point and then go back and tie the rest of the fly.
Well, we won't here because of the time and not being able to let it dry.
But you get in trouble if you put that head cement on and then try to finish the fly before
try to lay this on.
So you're doing the first part of the three-stage wing now is going to be
the white
bucktail. How long are you going to tie it in?
I'll tie it almost to the end of the wing, or the tail, I mean.
That's what I usually do.
I'll go ahead and get these even.
You know, there's differences in technique, but there's differences in style, too. Some people's style is to tie flies. You can sometimes look and say, oh, that was tied by so-and-so. You can look at the same pattern tied by someone else. It'll look a little bit different. because it'll have that person's style. And it's not that critical whether this goes to the end of the tail or almost to the end of the tail.
Matters not.
But you should make your flies consistent. You don't want the wing to be one length on one fly and another length on the next fly. They all should come out uniform as you develop your style.
As even as you can.
Now I see you use some more of that rubber-based cement on the hair
those
wing,
butts.
as we always do.
Yeah, I did.
One problem that you sometimes have when you do a multi-stage wing is keeping the color bands separated. Is there anything you did in Protector? I was talking. Can you tell us what you did?
I'll show you on this black one.
Okay.
I go around the band of hair first before I go around the hook. That will just really squeeze it all together and keep it even.
Now, we were talking about this before we tied the fly. Show us what you do.
Okay, I'll get the thing laid out here where I want it for. Now I'm going to bring my thread up. You can see the black is quite a ways above the hook. I'm going to go just around that band of black. I'm going to pull it down. And now pull tight around the hook
and squeeze between your thumb and your forefinger so it doesn't roll or spread. Now that's really interesting because that's pretty much what I do, except I put in that wrap after I've tied it down.
Okay.
I keep holding the wing up away from the white, tie it in, then make the loop around the base and the hook and keep going. So we've really done the same thing, but in just different forms.
And then I'll tie in a section of brown.
Now you'll notice this has got really going to have the coloration of a minnow. It's going to have the little flash in the silver. It's going to have the white belly type of the first wing, the dark lateral line of the black strip, and now the brownish back.
And with that rib on there, it kind of almost makes it look like scales on a fish.
Absolutely. And it reflects light pretty much as scales do.
Now I'll lay this on there, same as we had before. I'll go around it, lay it down on, pull tight, squeeze tight, and lay it in. I'm going to come forward slightly.
And I've actually seen some people paint eyes on the side of the head on this one.
Yeah, I have too.
I've seen some people use jungle cock eyes in them, but neither one is really necessary, although some people are firm believers in eyes on flies, particularly streamers. But that's up to you whether you want to do that or not. This is the basic fly. Build up a nicely tapered head, and looks good.
And I'll put a whip finish on it.
Yeah.
Clip that off, and it's ready for head cement. Now I'm going to take my scissors, I think we have time, and I'm going to fray that tail just a little.
Okay.
I don't like just looking at that. It looks like a piece of yarn hanging
Well, in either
back
event,
there.
it'll fray as soon as you cast it.
It will. As soon as you start casting,
yeah.
it will. But you can see the distinct bands in there. You can see the black between the other two. Get a good coat of head cement on this. On this fly, like my steelhead flies, I would probably put 2 coats of head cement on. I would let the first one dry.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I would do exactly the same. I like to have it a glossy head. And on the streamer flies, you'll see we use a little bit larger head because we are trying to imitate a minnow. Well, that's the black-nosed dace.
Black-nosed dace.
Tell us very quickly what you use for materials.
Use red yarn tail, flat silver tinsel, with ribbing of oval silver tinsel. Used 3 colors of bucktail, white on the bottom, black in the center, tan on top.
And that's our last fly for tonight, the black-nosed dace. Tie a few up if you like fishing streamers for either bass or trout. Tie a few this week, try to fish them, and we'll be back here next week to give you 3 more new and I hope exciting flies. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Dave and Leroy have produced a new 90-minute video on fly tying techniques. To order a copy, call the number on your screen. These tips are only $28.95 plus $3.95 shipping and handling. Please have your credit card ready and call 1-800-883-0124 to order fly tying techniques. You can also order the programs in this series. There are 3 programs on each 90-minute tape for $22.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-800-883-0124 and order your fly tying videos or the techniques tape.